Okay, hello. Good morning, comms class. Hope you all are doing well. I'm Will Parker, and I know we're not supposed to introduce ourselves, but I'm not sure how else to start off my presentation than saying, hi, I'm Will Parker. So hi, I'm Will Parker, and today I'm going to be presenting about the Battle of Iwo Jima. Just excited to present about this topic. Can't wait to hear from you guys and see your speeches. I'm sure they're all going to be absolutely fantastic. And I miss you guys, and yeah, I can't wait to just do this thing and see y'all's speeches, and yeah, I hope you guys are staying safe. So without further ado, I guess we can get started. So why should you care about the Battle of Iwo Jima? Well, I think it's a very important part of our nation's history. It's a very important battle in World War II in the Pacific Theater, and it's just very healthy to know your nation's history and just some history of the world. That's a very good thing to know. Maybe you'll be on like Jeopardy one day. If people still watch Jeopardy, I don't think I've watched Jeopardy, but maybe you'll be on a game show one day. They'll be like, what happened at the Battle of Iwo Jima? You'll be like, I know what happened at the Battle of Iwo Jima. But also I think it's important to know on a more serious note, just like the sacrifice and just what our nation's troops have done for us in order for us to keep our freedom, just the freedom to give, a presentation like this. So the sacrifice they made for our freedom is also a very important and healthy thing to know. What is my credibility on this subject? Well, I'm a history fanatic. I love learning about history. If I wasn't majoring in government, I would probably major in some kind of history, but majoring in government, you get a lot of history anyway, like the history of our country, Constitution, major world events like World War I, World War II. So I love learning about that different kind of stuff. Also, I have a grandfather who actually fought in this battle during World War II, and so we've gotten some information from him that's kind of been passed down to us and to me. So that also, I think, gives me some credibility. I'm not an expert, but it does give me some credibility on the subject, I would think. So my thesis statement, or my purpose, definitely not to persuade you, since this isn't a persuasive essay, so I'm not going to, or presentation rather, so I'm not going to give you like a call to action or anything. It's just to inform you guys on what happened at this battle, since it is a very important battle. And so just to give you some more information, and maybe you'll come away with like a reverence, or like, not a reverence, but like more of a respect for like American troops and, the sacrifice that they've made. Not saying that you don't have a respect already, but just a respect for what they've done for our country and for our freedom that we can have today. So how I'm going to go through this, I'm going to hit the background and the context of Iwo Jima, and then I'm going to go through the major events, just what happened, and then the legacy of the Battle of Iwo Jima. So I'm going to get my timer started here, and we can just dive right in. Alrighty. So what is the context and background? So this is the year 1945, so we're near the end of the war. Allied forces in Europe are closing in around Germany, so German forces are kind of crippling. It's near the end of the war. And the war in the Pacific Theater is, it's not just getting started, but it's still kind of in the thick of the fight. So that's kind of like the world events that are going on right now. We're making our way closer and closer to Japan. And so Iwo Jima is kind of like the next step there. Now, what is Iwo Jima? Iwo Jima was like it was just a small like volcanic island, just coarse sand, very slippery sand, hard to run on. Not a lot of vegetation, just like a lot of rock. And it's in between the Mariana Islands, I can never say that right, the Mariana Islands, and in between mainland Japan. So it's kind of in the middle of there. So why did it need to be taken? Well, it needed to be taken as like a stepping point to Japan. So like from Iwo Jima, we can attack places like Okinawa, which is closer to Japan, or just a mainland attack on Japan, which was still in the minds of, the administration of our forces during World War II. And it also had a lot of airstrips that we could use, so our pilots didn't have to ditch their planes in the sea. They could just land on Iwo Jima, and it'd be really helpful for them. Now, when did this happen? So the Battle of Iwo Jima actually took place February 19th of 1945, and it actually didn't end till March 26th. So that's like 38 days of fighting, so a little over a month. So that's a long time to be fighting a battle, but that's just the span of when it happened. So now that you guys have context and background of this battle, you kind of know what's going on. We'll move on to what actually happened. So here's some pictures of Iwo Jima. I'll go through and explain some of them in a second in the short time that I have. But the battle actually began with naval bombardment 3 days before Marines actually stormed the beaches. So you have naval bombardment of the island. The only problem is the Japanese are actually in tunnels that they made, because this is a heavily fortified island. They're in tunnels, miles, around the island. There's miles of channels of tunnels. And so the bombardment didn't really do anything. They just hit underground. And their plan was to let Marines storm the beaches, wait about a half hour, and then just attack them with everything, with artillery coming from Mount Suribachi, which is what you see here, and just gunfire and everything that they have. They're already just tuned in right where the Marines are going to come. So they kind of made a kill zone for the Marines that were there. And it was just very intense and brutal combat. You had testimonies that were saying, I believe it was from an interview on Fox News, because we just passed the 75th anniversary of this battle. You had a commander saying that you could actually light your cigarette on the amount of lead that was flying by. That's just how thick the lead was just flying by. And there's another interview on the same article about a colonel who was on the beach, and he said trying to run on the beach by itself was trying to run on coffee grounds. If you can imagine running on coffee grounds, in your boots when they're wet, you're not really getting anywhere. It's going to be like running on a treadmill. You're going to be running in place. So just really, really, really tough for the troops. And so the fighting lasted for 38 days. And it was so brutal. And we lost a lot of American lives and a lot of Japanese lives. So moving on, and also before we actually move on, a pivotal moment in this battle was when U.S. troops, U.S. Marines, took over Mount Suribachi, which was here. And it's probably one of the most recognized pictures in war. I don't know if I have it here. Here they are here. So one of the most recognized pictures are when the people are raising up the flag and you kind of have people behind those people. So I don't have the actual picture of that here, but you have the people raising up the flag. I'm sure you all might know what I'm talking about, might have seen it before, but that's the raising of Mount Suribachi. That's on Iwo Jima. And so it was a battle that was just fought with tanks, with bazookas, with flamethrowers, clearing out caves. That was the job of my grandfather. He was clearing out caves with a flamethrower, just very harsh on everybody. But eventually, March 26th, we see victory won on Iwo Jima. And it was just a very hard-won victory. And so the legacy of that victory were the airstrips were cleared, and now they were able to use with American troops. Our pilots didn't have to ditch their planes in the sea, which, is very expensive. Planes are expensive, and pilots are hard to get if they weren't able to make it out. So airstrips were able to be used, and their offensive could be continued. You could use this as a staging ground to get over to Okinawa to get to Japan. And there were actually 27 Congressional Medals of Honor that were awarded for this during this offensive, several to Navy men and others to Marines. And it's the most out of any U.S. conflict, U.S. battle that's ever been recorded in history. And that comes from the National World War II Museum.org. It's a website, but that's where I got that information there. And we have a quote here by Admiral Nimitz, who was in the administration during World War II, about this battle. He said that he famously quoted that uncommon valor was a common virtue, which is just a really cool thing to say. They actually have that in the Museum of the Marine Corps. So anyway, this timeline, just to cite my sources here, the timeline came from pbs.org. And thank you for just watching my presentation. And I hope your guys' presentations just go great. Can't wait to watch them. And here's my works cited. So thank you so much.